On today's Technobabble, why you need a video pre-flight checklist.
This is Technobabble, your weekly source for church video and graphics news, perspectives, tips, and tricks. And now here's your host, Paul Clifford.
Hi, and welcome again to another episode of Technobabble. This is the show where every week we talk about using video and graphic design in the church. My name is Paul Allen Clifford. I'm your host. I'd love for you to ask your questions, so just do that below the video. That's great. If you're listening to the audio, though, you're probably thinking, well, what video? Well, I also put these out on video, and they're available at trinitydigitalmedia.com. That's cool. Or you can just go to trinitydigitalmedia.com/contact, and there's all my contact information, or you can leave your question right there. That's cool as well. So I can't remember exactly what triggered this thought in my head, but I was thinking about pre-flight checklists and how that there are some people that think, well, I don't need any of that, and quite frankly, sometimes I'm one of those. But it's really not the case that if I want to do a really good job, that I just neglect the pre-flight checklist altogether. So I thought that we'd talk a little bit about one and talk about the do's and don'ts of them. So first off, why would you do a pre-flight checklist? Well, unless what you're doing for your video is a one-step procedure that you can't forget, you really ought to have a pre-flight checklist. Now, the reason is pretty simple. You're going to save yourself time by going through the same things over and over and over again on a checklist, and you're really going to get better quality video as well. Now, you might think, well, I've done this for years and years, so I don't need a checklist. And this is the kinds of thoughts that I have myself. But the truth is that when you've done something over and over and over again, sometimes it's easy to forget a step, or someone distracts you right at the wrong time and you forget to do it. So a couple of weeks ago, I was directing at church and I forgot to record the service. I knew to record the service. I'm the first person who's ever recorded a service. I've been at that church for, let's see, it's 2015, so about 15 years. And so you'd think that I'd remember this, but no, I didn't have a checklist in front of me, so I had all these other things on my mind, and it just slipped my mind. Now, happily, we had backup recordings, but that's still something that I should have thought to do. So if I'd had a checklist, I would have at least gone, oh, I almost forgot to do that. So that's something for you to think about. Now, think about people that when it really matters, they have these checklists. Now, I've called this a pre-flight checklist, and that's for a reason. You see, pilots, when they're getting ready to take off, they have a list of things that they run through every single time. And they have that on a piece of paper, on an iPad, somewhere where they just have to go through it each and every time. So why do they do that? Even pilots that have been flying for 20 years do that. Why do they do that? Because if they leave out something important, they could die. Well, creating videos isn't like that. If you leave out, check the sound levels, you're not going to die. But it could be that you'll waste the entire shooting time because you forgot to check the sound levels. So that's something that I want you to consider, that really you need to do this. This isn't something that's kind of arbitrary or something that's meant to make your life harder. It's actually meant to make your life easier. NASA when they're sending up a space shuttle. Well, not anymore because they don't send up space shuttles anymore. But when they send up a vehicle into outer space, they have a list of things that they have to check because something small could lead to a disaster. So those are a couple of situations where these pre-flight checklists are helpful. So let's talk about some do's and don'ts for them. First off, when you're creating your pre-flight checklist, you want to include everything that happens before you start making your video. Not everything that happens during the making of the video, not everything that happens after you're making your video. Those should be separate lists. And especially the during the making of your video. When it's something like you're running a camera, you don't have your eyes to do anything other than looking through the viewfinder. Having a list of, oh, don't forget to do this, don't forget to do that, really isn't all that helpful. In fact, someone once made a checklist for me that included everything. Everything before, everything during, and everything after. But the thing was, I couldn't check off everything during because my hands were busy running the camera. My eyes were busy looking through the viewfinder. So I don't want you to create this list that says things like, keep both hands on the bars. Doesn't help. Don't forget to focus. Doesn't help. You could instead say something like, in your pre-flight checklist, quickly review what to do during the service and have that. That's fine. That's something you can check off. So it really matters that you're very specific in what you do and that the list is helpful, not just busy work, not just, well, someone said I needed to include this, so I'm going to include it. No. The point of all of this is to make the best videos you can to affect the most people and to not waste time. So absolutely be careful in what you include in your pre-flight checklist, that it's only stuff that actually helps. Another thing that I want you to do is I don't want you to include things that kind of are so obvious that the person starts to think, they think I'm an idiot here? Now, this is kind of a difficult thing to do, but for example, if the pre-flight checklist includes walk into the room, well, if they haven't walked into the room, they can't see the checklist, so therefore that's not all that useful. If the checklist includes check this item off the checklist, you know, if you're being funny, that's fine, but just remember that you don't want it so obvious that if they didn't do it, they would know they didn't do it. It should be stuff that's easy to forget. So back to my example of recording, I forgot to record that. That's something that's obvious, but it's something that is easier to forget than turn on the displays. Two big displays there. If I didn't remember to turn those on, I wouldn't see a thing. So that would be an obvious thing. Less obvious, remember to record. Unless there's a big record that flashes on the screen or something like that where it's just so obvious that it doesn't need to be said. So what you want is you want something that is actually helpful, something that doesn't do things that are so obvious that if you left them out, no one would forget, and something that's actually helpful, that doesn't require them to check the checklist when they should be using their eyes or using their hands to do something else. Well, I hope that helped you. I hope that that is on the list of things that is helpful to you. If you like this content, you'd probably like my email newsletter, so head on over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/gifts, GIFTS, and there you can pick up some great church tech gifts. And you'll get a free subscription to my email newsletter where I'll give you more tips and tricks. I've been doing a lot of those lately. And news about what's happening here at trinitydigitalmedia.com. Also head over to my store, trinitydigitalmedia.com/store, where I've created resources to help you, the church tech person. Till next time, this is Paul Allen Clifford with trinitydigitalmedia.com. Go out and change eternity.